Do you want your kids to learn Korean? Have you thought about sending your kids to Korea over the summer but don't know where to start? Today, I'm going to share with you my recommendations on helping your children learn Korean both at home and abroad if you want to send them, to give them a truly immersive experience of Korea. If you can speak Korean, nothing beats having a parent speaking Korean with the kids at home when it comes to them learning to communicate freely in the language. But often, even those kids don't learn to read or learn academic Korean terms until they attend school. So the next thing to also consider is to enroll your children in a dual immersion Korean language program. Before I jump ahead, what is a dual immersion language program? These programs are where the classes are often taught 50% in one language and 50% another. So English and another language, so that the children become biliterate or bilingual. The common languages offered in the US for dual immersion is Spanish, and my children actually attend a Chinese English dual immersion program, but Korean is also offered at various locations, largely in California, going from elementary age all the way through high school. Here's just a sample of schools that I found from a quick search, including tuition-free public schools that offer dual immersion Korean language programs. The third recommendation is to enroll the kids in a Korean school offered at a local Korean church. As a more commonly available option, many of the Korean churches offer a Korean language program, usually on Saturdays, running anywhere from an hour to 4 hours a week. Lunch is often provided. Tuition is fairly reasonable too, where most programs run anywhere between $200 to $250 for the first child for an entire semester, with a discount for any siblings attending at the same time. The fourth and final option I have for at-home learning is to find a tutor. Now, we've tried online tutoring before, but in-person tutoring seems to work the best, at least for my kids, unless they've already established a learning relationship with the teacher in person before. This option can be pricey though, as the requested rates have ranged from $15 for what has been inconsistent quality or availability, all the way up to $100 an hour, which is just too rich for my pocketbook. Before we get into what options you have for the summer, if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and check out my other video, link provided above, on what to do on the weekends in Korea with kids for fun. And with that, to give you some background, I had intended to go to Korea with my older child before she was of kindergarten age for several months just before the pandemic. As you know, giving kids exposure to a language early on is best. And we had just canceled daycare for her in the US and was successful in making arrangements at my job at the time so that I could work remotely overseas so that she could attend daycare there. But that trip was canceled due to the rising cases of COVID in Korea. So that was back in early 2020. And this was a big blow for her Korean language learning, especially since she was so eager to go to Korea at the time. Fast forward 2 years into 2022, and at this stage, both of my kids were pretty reluctant to go to Korea to study, especially during their summer break. But being the tiger mom that I can be sometimes, I pushed forward and started researching what kind of summer camps my kids could attend. But I found that, at least for me, each of the programs that I found had their own drawbacks. I was turned off because some of the centers charged different rates for what was posted on their websites by like a lot, and where discounts were not honored for overseas residents like us, compounding that with a penalty for paying USD currency, like this center, which offered their tuition at $645,001 per month, which would come out to $500 or $1,000 for 2 months. But instead, the center sent me an invoice which was double what the residents were being charged. Second, the centers for children were generally offered only between 10 in the morning to 1 p.m., which might work for some, but for me, who's going to be working full time, this wasn't going to work. But what was particularly concerning was that they only offered one class for beginners, grouping children of all ages and abilities because of lack of enrollment. So the classes started from the Korean alphabet, which might be fine for the first summer for some kids, but what if your kids aren't beginner level, or you have 2 kids like I do who aren't the same level or the same age either? Would you really want them grouped together? For a truly immersive and even more affordable alternative, what you can do is what I did, which is enroll your child to attend either daycare or kindergarten if they're under the age of 6, or attend a public school in Korea if they are of school age during their summer break. Korea is one of those welcoming countries that offer free education for school-age children, even for foreigners, which is just amazing. What's even more incredible is that there are several multicultural schools throughout Korea which provides educational support for those foreign and multicultural children. The only thing you may have to pay for is meals, which for my school-age child came to 5,371, or around $4.30 a day, which included snack time and lunches. And when you think about lunch, we're not talking about the fast food pizza or the unhealthy options that are typical of the US lunch menu. Korea's school lunches are legendary. They're prepared on site by lunch ladies, which was the favorite part of both of my children's school day. In the morning, they might be served sliced fruit, vegetables, soy milk, and then at lunchtime, they might be served steamed rice with some Korean side dishes with meat, vegetables, kimchi, and then an afternoon snack with dessert like a shikha dessert, yogurt. The kids just loved it. I've provided a link in the description section below of some of the schools that provide educational support for children whose native language is not Korean. But keep in mind that most of these multicultural schools, called 다문화 학교, will only admit students who are enrolling for at least a semester. And note that the first semester in South Korea runs from March to July, with a month break for the summer, and then a second term running from around September to February, with a month and a half break for the winter. That said, some of these schools, like the one we located, would allow children to audit for the summer. What auditing means is that the child can attend classes full time, which run from around 8:40 in the morning to about 1:30 in the afternoon. Half of the classes she would be able to attend with other Koreans, and then for the other classes, she'd be joined by other multicultural students, about 4 students in total, where they would get a separate class, a special class, taking Korean as a second language. The only drawback I would say was that she was not allowed to enroll in any of the after-school activities offered at school, like gymnastics. Instead, after school, kids would either take more classes, often that were free, that were offered just across the street, either English as a second language, which obviously for my kids, that wouldn't make sense because their native language is English. Or they could take even more classes in Korean as a second language, art, dance, or taekwondo. Last summer, I enrolled my daughter in the free 1-hour daily after-school Korean language classes, but I think that was a mistake as she was getting burned out. So then we added K-pop dance, but that was a failure too, since those classes were more for kids playing games rather than learning how to do actual dance routines, as my daughter is a big fan of Blackpink, which it was those kind of dance routines that she had in mind. If your kids are younger and they're not of school age, you're still in luck. Unlike the cost of daycares in the US, where that can set you back $1,000 to even above $2,000 a month per child, daycares are subsidized, sometimes even for foreigners. Our total cost was $180,000 per month, or around $140. Once you pick a location you want to be at, you can find daycares often in apartment complexes in the area, or get recommendations when you arrive. Upon arrival, we were able to quickly come across 2 daycares that were within walking distance. Whether it's for daycare or attending Korean public school, from personal experience, I highly recommend that your kids learn some basic Korean, taking advantage of some of the options I mentioned earlier. The stronger the foundation that the kids arrive with, the more they'll get out of this experience, because they'll get to communicate with their classroom peers. After coming back, my kids were eager to go back to Korea this summer, and I'm so glad we gave them the right experience for them to want to come back, even if they say it's mostly for the food. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe, and let me know in the comment section what you thought and if there are any other suggestions for learning resources that you'd like to share.